Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. Bait and switch. You know that expression. It's an old one from the world of advertising, and it is popular in politics. Here's my question for you. Is there a massive sell job going on right now around the National Guard? What if sending the military around the country isn't just about fighting crime, but making it a crime to fight back against this administration? Now, President Trump got an early political win right here on the National Guard, and certainly in the media and certainly in polling. Why? Not because of how I felt about using the National Guard. I said the opposite, right? But why? Because the bait was that Trump is going to use federal resources to fight crime. Crime in big cities where people are afraid of it. D.C., Chicago, New York City. Killers, guns, right? This is being tough. And I could see President Trump viewing something as audacious as sending in the National Guard as just that. Posturing, a projection of power. That's why Democrats took a bruising by refusing the offer of federal help. Why? Because it played like they were what? Pro-crime, right? But then it evolved or devolved. It went from crime to general lawlessness. And that was their word. L.A., Chicago, Portland, these people are lawless. ICE can't operate. They're under attack. Locals won't help, as if locals couldn't control the streets, which is not a matter of fact, and certainly not what they're saying. Or, worse, locals didn't want to help because they are Democrats who want ICE attacked. But that does not ring true to me. This is about denying the president's power to encroach using the military on a state's right to self-governance. That's a real thing. The politics are noise. The signal is the law and the cases based on it. There are few instances that a president can activate the National Guard, okay? And you can look at them in the Insurrection Act, Title 10. You got an invasion, no-brainer, right? Think Pearl Harbor, not protests. You got a rebellion, right? But that's not what protest is. Protesters are protected. Now, crimes committed by people who were protesting are now part of what? A riot, and they are criminals. But that's not the same thing as a rebellion. Now, that gets me to a sensitive issue. I understand why people on the right and in MAGA don't like being beaten over the head with January 6th all the time, anytime they want to say that there's political violence on the left. I get it, but you also have to own it, and you must be consistent about it. I am not playing politics, bringing up January 6th here. I am giving it to you as an obvious example of an analysis under the law where something that is terrible, violent, unpatriotic, right, criminal, right, but not an insurrection, not a rebellion. Did I call it one early on? Yes. Why? Because that's what it looked like. But when prosecutors started to investigate and facts started to come out and they did not prosecute it as an insurrection because they could not prove it was a rebellion despite how it looked, I changed with them because I am not a fool. And only a fool or a pod bro holds on to a bad position when they have better facts. Because I don't care if you change your position. Yeah, I have a better one now because it's with the facts. So if you like it there, you got to stay consistent, my brothers and sisters, or you're part of the problem of convenience over conscience, right? If that's not a rebellion, what you're seeing in the streets of these cities is nowhere near it. Well, it could be. No, that's not what it is. Be consistent. Next one is to enforce civil rights protections. That's not what this is. Eisenhower and Kennedy used it for that, the National Guard, without the governor's approval, okay? And what was that for? To enforce desegregation. Move. So that leaves us the last one, which is what this is about, okay? You also had Bush using Title 10 during the Rodney King riots. But Portland, L.A., Chicago, it's nothing like that. If you don't remember Rodney King, which you probably don't, Google it, all right? And you'll see, oh, yeah, it's not that. Now, here's the best one. the extension of the argument that the president has inherent power to protect federal property and federal law enforcement, and that if there's an inability to execute federal law, he can come in, okay? That's why Bush sent in the National Guard during Rodney King, okay? But we don't have anything like that. There are no buildings occupied, destroyed, right? And if you think it's a coincidence that they're using the word insurrection about these cities as a political play to get it away from January 6th, if you think it's a coincidence that all of a sudden January 6th, this is what you're being asked to believe, okay? That at the same time, a president has plenary authority over the National Guard. They're his. He can use them wherever he wants, whenever he wants. Doesn't matter what the hell a governor says. Doesn't matter. If he sees it that way, it's part of his inherent executive authority. So you're supposed to believe that. But January 6th, the call to bring in the National Guard, oh, that was Pelosi's. Come on. So let's test these ideas with a better mind, someone I call for advice about what is right and not right when it comes to law, right? Because you have to drill down on these issues. You have to, okay? Again, I know a lot of you want it to be simple, okay? You want it to be simple. You want it to be, yeah, crime is bad. These people, you know, the president, he's just trying to make things safe. He's just trying to do it. How do you know? How do you know? What, do you know his head and his heart? Did you not hear what Stephen Miller said? Calling it an insurrection? Saying that these judges were an insurrection? I don't know what that happened in the whole part of my monologue. Like, I just lost it. The law is the best that we can do about this, not politics. They're trying to make it about politics. Using that word insurrection against judges? Listen to me, okay? The justice system is the best hope we have in our democracy right now. Congress is a bunch of shameless opportunists. The executive is all about self-interest, especially in this administration. It is the judiciary. Why do you think they keep attacking the judiciary? Why do you think since 2019 threats against judges are up 200%? Why do you think it was legitimate when this Goodstein, who had ruled against him in September, has her house blow up in an explosion, that they look at it as potential arson because of all the threats she's gotten? That's where we are. You think it's a coincidence that Stephen Miller is using the word insurrection? You don't think it's a play on you that he's telling you judges are terrorists? He's lucky he's in America. He is lucky he is in America because he is proof that we have to tolerate the obnoxious and ugly because that's what speech means here. That's what dissent means here. Because he is so full of it and he knows it. He just hopes you don't. That's what's going on here. And by the way, the judges, federal judges, not elected, right? They've been going both ways. I'm giving you a TRO here in Portland. I don't think the government has made a colorable action, that they have a need for this with the facts on the ground. But we'll have a full hearing. But I'm giving you the TRO. California, they say no, he can. And then they appeal, and it goes to the Ninth Circuit. By the way, that's where Portland will go also, same circuit. Those appellate judges say, no, the district court judge was wrong. They shouldn't have blocked the president. The president can do this. Why? Because ICE isn't able to do what it's supposed to do, so there is an inability. Now, is that true? I don't know. I don't know that it's true, but that's that judge's analysis. That's the system working. That's why they attack the system, because they want it to work for them every time, and that's not America. Now, do I have a guest rating? Great. We have Alan Dershowitz joining us tonight, Professor Emeritus, Harvard Law School, one of the best constitutional analysts in our country. Alan, good to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So please, Professor, as you have done many times before, tell me why I have the right intentions, but I am wrong in my analysis of whether the president has the ability to do what he's doing with the National Guard around the country.
you're not wrong, but you will turn out to be wrong in terms of what the courts will ultimately decide. You may be completely right about the president's motives and about everything you've said, but in the end, he has the cards. In the end, he can say he's sending the troops to protect federal buildings. He's sending the troops to protect ICE, federal officials. And the court's not going to be able to second guess that, even if he's completely wrong. The question is not who's right and who's wrong, but under the Constitution, who gets the power to make the mistake? And generally, it's the executive that gets that power, subject, of course, to judicial review. But the courts have to defer to presidential judgments about the safety of buildings. We saw what happened years ago with Black Lives Matter in Oregon and other places. We've seen what's happened. I think the president went the wrong way. I think when he starts saying he's sending the troops to protect Chicagoans from gangs, he's not going to prevail on that. But if he changes his theory and argues that he's there to protect federal buildings and federal officials, in the end, the courts are going to defer to that. That's my prediction. I'm not saying it's right, but it's a prediction as a constitutional analyst.
Well, I get it. I want to pull apart the pieces a little bit so people can see the mechanics of what the factors are, because the additional facts to give to your analysis is, one, it's not a president, it's this president.
Right.
And does that play into how a judge analyzes in terms of what seems to be the basis of the judgment, which has to have something to do with the test? And then the boogeyman policy argument, which is Kent State. That's why I'm worried, Alan. Kent State. If I thought this was about having the brothers and sisters who aren't trained to do policing but look pretty scary sitting out there and keeping streets quiet in the summer heat of some big city, okay, I don't like it, but I understand it. But Kent State, if it's a cop and a protester gets sideways and a cop beats them, or a cop even has to, God forbid, fire to save themselves, one thing. Horrible, but one thing. If they are in BDUs, if they're in camo, and you have the military killing Americans, you remember, I wasn't born yet, but you remember how this ricocheted around our country. I'm afraid of it.
I remember it very well. I was a lawyer, a civil rights lawyer at the time of Kent State, and it was really scary because they were our children, our brothers and our sisters. They were innocent people protesting the war, and they got shot. That could happen. But we've also seen the reverse. Antifa doesn't allow people like me to speak. They threaten us. They threaten our children. Antifa really is a terrorist group. Whether it's an organization or not, we don't know. And so the president has a plausible approach. And the question is, are the courts going to second guess him on the fact? Ultimately, they won't. The president has the right to be wrong, and he may very well be wrong here. And judicial review will only stop him if he presses the wrong button and invokes the wrong constitutional authority. I think if he maintains that he's doing this to protect Chicagoans and people in democratic cities from crime, he's going to lose. But if he changes his philosophy and says he's doing it to protect federal buildings and federal officials, he's likely to win. And then, there's always the risk of Kent State, because when you have police officers with guns in American cities, the likelihood of some misfire is always considerable.
Well, especially if they're not trained for it, like the National Guard. It's hard enough with cops who are trained. If they're not, and they have real firepower, I mean, the difference in just in terms of damage we'll see would be worthy of a God forbid. So, Alan, you have no concern that there is a chance that a Professor Dershowitz is just crushing the administration day after day with legal arguments, and their podcast is blowing up, and they're all over TV, and they're even making Cuomo look smart, and that this president can say, look, my right to send these troops where I need to make sure that federal law is pretty clear. I'm not letting Dershowitz out of his house, and I'm cutting his internet connections, and he's going to stay right where he is until he stops saying that stupid stuff he's saying. No, you don't have any fear that this is the road we're on?
Of course I do. I have great fear of that, and that's why the judiciary has to be careful. It has to make sure that it invokes the power to stop the president when it's appropriate to do. And I think up to now, they have done that. I worry that if the president does invoke protection of buildings and protection of federal officials, And if a court starts intervening in that, the Supreme Court will say no. Look, this is a work in progress. We've never had, as you say, we've never had a precedent for this before. Even Kent State, even the 70s that I lived through and litigated through, I defended the people in the Chicago 7 case. It's not quite the precedent. And I've never seen a situation before where the president calls it an insurrection when it doesn't seem to have the qualities of an insurrection as the framers of the Constitution had in mind. So I think he's pressing the wrong constitutional button, but there are other cards he can play, and I think he will play them. So if you're asking me what I like and what I don't like, I'm on your side. If you're asking me what, as a constitutional analyst, I predict the courts ultimately will do and say, I think in the end, the president will lose a lot of battles, but he will ultimately win the war. That's the fear. And there's legislation. If you have a midterm election that changes, maybe there could be some legislation to put some control on this. But absent legislation, the courts are going to defer to the president when he makes alleged factual determinations that federal buildings or federal officials are at risk. So that's the danger that we face as an American public.
I got you. Professor Dershowitz, well argued and understandable. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I always appreciate you. Thank you, Chris.
All right, we'll speak again. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. And look, no, I don't think they're going to lock Dershowitz or anybody like him in the House, but you have to open your mind to the possible every time a step is taken that, as the professor just said, we've never seen before, and not in a good way. All right? Now, are there protests? Yeah. Are they getting hotter? Yeah. Why? Because of all the rhetoric and what is happening around this country. So, Trump is saying he's going to send in the National Guard. Would that make it better? I don't think so. Where are the right politics on this? Who has high ground? We debate with better minds who have lived this. Next.
Let me be clear. Donald Trump is using our service members as political props and as pawns in his illegal effort to militarize our nation's cities. The state of Illinois is going to use every lever at our disposal to resist this power grab and get Noam's thugs the hell out of Chicago. I'm not afraid. I am not afraid, and I won't back down.
Look, what do I like? What do I not like? I don't like the feel of the National Guard in our cities under these circumstances. I don't like it. Does he have the right legally? Maybe. We're seeing different outcomes in different courts. But is he making the right call? Now, that takes us to politics. I don't like hearing the governor call people working for ICE thugs, okay? They may be sent on bad missions. That doesn't make them bad people, okay? So what are the politics? What is the perception, and how is it being made the reality? Chicago native, Democratic strategist Ameshia Cross. Ameshia knows the city, knows the politics, knows the dynamic. Why does that matter? Because there's a big question of fact here. So thank you very much, my friend, for being here. Now, former Illinois governor Rod Blagojevich also checks the same boxes. So I have them here because they have different feelings about what's happening in terms of the rights and what is right. So thank you both. Ameshia, when you look at this, you understand where Pritzker is coming from. My check on how he talks about ICE, but, that's a taste issue. What do you think the political realities are here?
Well, when you use zip ties to hog-tie children, when you disappear them in the middle of the night, put Black people in one U-Haul, Latinos in another U-Haul, in a building that I used to call home because that place that got raided was actually my old apartment complex in the city of Chicago in South Shore. I think that it is disgusting to watch what is happening, the level of fear tactics, the level of overreach from this administration, in addition to not acknowledging that right now in the city of Chicago, when we talk about just now leaving the summer, homicides are at their lowest rate since 1965. And just so you understand that time frame, my own mother was born in 1963 on the south side of Chicago. So we have to be very real about why this area is being targeted. The people that are being targeted in large part aren't even undocumented. There are several Black residents and several Latino residents of the city of Chicago who are not undocumented, who were also detained. This becomes very real and very scary. The militarization of one of America's crown jewels in terms of its city is, I think, something that is hard to come back from. And we know that this administration is going out of its way to showcase power, but moreover, to try to bring cities like Chicago to their knees and to normalize the weaponization of the military against American citizens. That's a real problem and something we should all be paying attention to.
So, Gov, you see it differently. Obviously, if Ameshia were right, you would share those concerns. So why don't you think she has the right analysis?
Well, to begin with, President Trump was elected on a mandate by the people to secure our borders and to fix the illegal migrant problem in America. 14 million illegal immigrants have come to America, and the best estimates suggest that 7 to 10% of them are criminals, many of them violent criminals, rapists, murderers, gangsters. And the President of the United States was given a mandate by the people on that issue, is largely elected on that issue, and he's trying to carry it out. And the responsibility of the governor, irrespective of his party, and the mayor, irrespective of his party, is to follow the law, whether you agree with it or not, and to assist if you can, but certainly not to resist. Now, I would point out to Ameshia and to you, Chris, and to me as the first Democratic governor to endorse Obama, that Obama deported 3 million people when he was president. They called him the deporter in chief. And the same Democrats that are making noise now weren't criticizing him back then, nor were they against the border wall back then. Pardon me?
How matters? Look, Democrats screwed up about the southern border. They made the wall into something that it wasn't. They were lax, they were lazy, and they have paid for it. Now, how still matters. Obama is not a good apples to apples because it took him 3 times the time that we have had so far because they did it through due process. So I'm not saying that deporting is right or wrong. How you do it matters. What Ameshia is talking about, what you're seeing in your hometown, is that the how that you want in America?
Well, I'm not in love with the how, but I don't know that he has any other choice because he's getting resistance from the Democratic governor, the Democratic mayor, in not just Chicago, but in other places as well. When Obama was president, he was deporting millions of people, and Rahm Emanuel was the mayor. Rahm Emanuel wasn't standing in his way. There weren't sanctuary cities. They weren't trying to thwart the efforts of the president to do his job as he's required to do. And as much as there is a real, legitimate humanitarian issue involved with most of the people that came here illegally, and it's understandable that we have compassion for them, there still is this obligation to follow the law. And the law is that millions came to our country illegally. The president said he would fix this problem, and the American people elected him to do just that.
So, Ameshia, if you were magically put in charge of enforcing this law, and you knew that this was a big reason you got elected, what would you be doing differently?
I think that there is a way to enforce the laws on the books when it comes to undocumented immigration. There are ways to enforce immigration reform that do not include the level of violence, the level of invocation of violence that we're seeing from this administration. And as somebody who voted for and whose family voted for former Governor Blagojevich, I would like to recall in 2005 where this governor actually passed executive orders, wrote executive orders, signed them, that were welcoming to immigrants, specifically to the state of Illinois, specifically to the city of Chicago, and that actually approved of certain centers to make sure that they had the opportunity that was allowed for all Chicagoans. It was something that was supported by him at that time and something that he went on several campaigns to talk about. And also that this is a former governor who was granted a commutation from the sitting president of the United States, Donald Trump. We have to be very real about what's happening in the streets right now. And this has nothing to do with immigration reform as much as it has everything to do with militarizing American streets, militarizing the cities across this country that Donald Trump, not only in this current administration, but also in 2016, set his eye towards. It is very frustrating. It is separatist. It does not help the city. What we know is that crime has gone down across this country in multiple cities, especially violent crime. And we know the strategies that got them there. And not a single one of those strategies is being concentrated on by this administration at all.
Did you change your politics because Trump did you a solid, Gov? I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank Ameshia and her family for voting for me. I wish they didn't. I wouldn't have gone where I ended up going. But let me address that issue. No, when I was
Yeah, it's
governor,
their fault. yeah, I knew it.
Anyway, she's not wrong about what she said about my policies regarding immigrants. In fact, I supported legislation, signed a law that gave driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants. I gave health care to a guy who was about to die and required the University of Illinois hospitals to give him the surgery to save his life. His brother was going to give him his other kidney. So I have a record on that. There's no doubt about that. But when the president of the United States is elected by the people to do a job that they hired him to do, and he is asking local leaders, governors and Democrats, to cooperate with him, but at the worst, don't resist me, the governors and the mayors have a responsibility to follow the law, whether they like it or not. And thank goodness we had a Democratic president named John Kennedy who actually federalized the National Guard in the year Ameshia was born, 1963, to force another Democrat governor, the segregationist George Wallace, to leave the schoolhouse door and allow Vivian Malone and James Hood access to the University of Alabama.
Hold on. I'm not laughing about that. Enforcing that law was one of the most important things that has happened in this country, okay? And I think that's something that needs to be repeated. But for you to suggest that Ameshia Cross was born in 1963, there is nothing else you could have said, Gov. Her mother was born in 1963. Ameshia Cross was born like 15 minutes ago compared to you and me.
Ameshia,
That is the only thing that has mattered in this whole interview. You're lucky you're not in the same room. Let me tell you, I've seen those limbs move fast. You don't want to be there, Gov. Governor Blagojevich, thank you very much for your take on this. Ameshia Cross, I got to say, I don't talk about how people look, but you look great for your age. I got to just say, for 60, whatever you are, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Coming up, oh, that's funny. He's going to pay for that. Now, very interesting perspective there. So this guy passed laws to help them, but now he thinks this is okay. That's a tricky political swing. What do you think of it? Okay, now, you remember the hit Nickelodeon show, Big Time Rush? One of its stars is all grown up and using his fame and his talent to help honor those affected on October 7th. James Maslow has teamed up with Israeli pop stars to use music as a cure. Let's see how he did. All right, you got kids like mine, teenagers, a little older. There was this huge show on Nickelodeon called Big Time Rush. I watched a lot of it. Now, one of its stars, James Maslow, is using music. And Maslow wants to change the minds and hearts of people who spewed what he called vitriol and lies about Israel and the Jewish people after October 7th. So he teamed up with a popular Israeli singer and Israeli rapper to record a single called Always on My Mind, okay? The release will commemorate the 2-year anniversary of October 7th.
Lights go by in different places, but the moon will rise. And through the phases we see eye to eye. And face the changes, knowing one thing will stay the same. You're always on my mind.
Now, he's always been wildly talented, but it's a really interesting chance he's taking, in my opinion. So James Maslow joins us now. Mr. Maslow, thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time. I don't usually let people as wildly more handsome than me as you are come on this show. We have a rule, but I'll break it because you are doing something that I think is. Thank you. It's all right, James. You know, it's because of the issue, and I respect so much you doing something that is so risky in our current culture and climate. You are aware of this. How do you negotiate the risk? Why are you doing this? What do you want to come from it?
Well, it's saddening and upsetting to acknowledge that it's risky. I'm aware that it is, but it simply shouldn't be. Standing up for Judaism, standing against anti-Semitism, and standing up for Israel shouldn't be something that's so controversial and so politicized. But you and I both know that it has been. And that's a big part of the reason why I am. So much of what is propagated out there and what is regurgitated and frankly just what is posted and tweeted about is inaccurate at best and blatantly untrue at worst. And a lot of this, from apartheid to you name it, can simply be solved if someone were to simply take a trip to Israel. And that's something that I have done multiple times. And so I wanted to showcase creating a song to show the beautiful sides of Israel, the diversity, the acceptance, and all the things that I know to be true about it, because I have been over there, shooting the video over there, to utilize this as hopefully a bridge to bring a bit of a better light to Israel, to Judaism, and hopefully start a conversation where people may realize, oh, wait a second, I may not have all the facts, or I might be being misled right now.
How do you feel about the idea of holding two thoughts in your mind at the same time, that Israel has the right to defend itself and what's happening in Gaza has been too much for too long? How do you balance the equities?
First of all, I agree with both of those. And I think most people, dare I say the silent majority of us, will agree with both of those. I don't think that it's fair for me or even a lot of us to weigh in on the strategies of war, a horribly unfortunate war that started on October 7th. Having said that, it's crazy to attack a country who's defending themselves and to this day still trying to get their own hostages and their own people back home. So I, like a lot of people, I'm so hopeful that the hostages are returned and that this war is over. It's been too long. It should be, and I pray that it's over in a matter of moments, maybe the next hours or coming days, God willing. But the truth is, that is when a lot of the work needs to start. It needs to happen. Since October 7th, we as a country and as this world have normalized a hate towards each other. We have normalized anti-Semitism to the likes of which I never thought that I would see in my life. And that's not okay. And that's why I created this song, and that's why I'm here today and why I'm standing up. I will stand up against anti-Semitism, and I will stand up in an attempt to have a conversation with all sides to normalize having conversations again. It's something I feel that we've lost, and that's a shame.
What's your favorite part of the song?
My favorite part of the song is actually the post, where you're always on my mind, and the my are on what they call ones and twos. And it's something that I didn't write initially. I wrote the hook to be a little bit different, and then I actually collaborated with an amazing Israeli producer named Itai Shimoni. And that was one of his first contributions. He came in, he said, hey, if you want this to resonate in the Middle East and be more of a world music, which was the intention, change this to that. And it blew my mind. It made the song so much more unique and exciting for me.
The people who love and care about you and your career, how did you convince them that this was worth what may come with it?
You know, the people who love and care about me were the ones convincing me that this is the right thing to do. I have to give my dad a lot of love and a lot of credit. I first went back over to Israel. I'd been a couple of times before. This was in November of 2023, about a month after the war started. And obviously, I had a lot of hesitancies for a lot of the obvious reasons. But when I put it to my dad, he said, James, I know you. And I know if you believe you can do good and you still don't go, you will regret that for the rest of your life. And so I did. And since then, anybody who truly knows me, knows where my heart lies, knows that I am doing my best to bring people together. That's always been my message, unification, focusing on our commonalities and not our differences. And anybody who feels differently, I truly don't think knows me very well at all.
Where can they get it and when?
On My Mind, it's out now. It just came out on Friday. So it's streaming everywhere, and the video is on YouTube. Just go to YouTube/James Maslow. Or just look up James Maslow, On My Mind. Shachar Saul is the rapper. Maya Dadan is the pop star. So if you've never heard Hebrew, or if you have and you want to listen to English and Hebrew, it has some beautiful parts in there that you can listen to.
All right, I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you doing it with me. Let me know how I can help and how it goes going forward. I wish you all good things.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on tonight.
All right, bud. You know how to get me if you need anything. James Maslow.
Thanks.
Beautiful guy, beautiful song for beautiful reason. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Up next, you know who matters most here. Dusty, why'd you gotta leave that guy up so long? How long do people have to look at the before and the after picture? Have your say. You're most important. And don't talk to me about how good looking that guy is. I don't want to hear it. 844-968-7720. Time for you to have your say. Dusty, who do you got?
Wait, did you imply in that last segment that you at one point looked like James? Before and
Yeah, I was
after?
better looking.
No,
when I was his age, I was better looking.
No. I knew you before that. I've known you this whole time.
And? You've said multiple times I was the best looking guy in our neighborhood. Said it multiple times. Best looking guy. Me. Next.
I'm not going to tell them what neighborhood that was.
It's a small neighborhood.
Very small. It was near a zoo. No, just kidding. Okay, Lucas from Chicago. Don't die on the set, okay?
Ooh, that was good.
Lucas from Chicago.
Lucas, what's your question? That was a good insult. What do you got?
I would have to disagree with Dusty there. I think you've got the upper hand over James.
Yeah, then you got to get your eyes checked. What's your question?
Well, I just want to say, express some of the frustration that us Chicagoans have over this whole National Guard debate. Last weekend when the National Guard troops came out to Chicago, there was a lot of support. A lot of it wasn't shown in the media and whatnot. But I think a lot of the frustration is coming from the fact that our governor is, after 30 people are shot, 5 killed just this past weekend, which is the average weekend here in Chicago, he still is able to stand at a podium and with a straight face talk to us Chicagoans and say that all is well and nothing is going down the hill, which is not the case. I love the city. I was born and raised, but we need the help. And I think it's okay to stand at a podium and say that we need help.
I get it. And I think that the politics get in the way because of this binary battle to the bottom, right? It's always about which side is worse, and you can show no weakness, and cooperation is weakness. My problem is the how, not the what. You have a crime problem, okay? You've had one for a very long time. It's very insidious. It's tied with poverty, and it's tied with social designations. It's a very interesting dynamic you have there in Chicago. I know it well. Do you need help? Yes. Should you take federal resources? Yes. National Guard? No. You don't need them. They're not in the policing business, and they haven't worked anywhere in the country to control what wants to be controlled in these cities, according to their own communities. So the governor isn't doing that. Why? Because you don't need to in these politics. In these politics, you can be as ham-fisted as you want it. As long as Trump sucks is coming out of your mouth as a Democrat, you're on the road to success with your own. But it's killing us. Next.
Jeremy from Virginia.
Jeremy, what's your question?
Hey, Chris, you are certainly more handsome, for the record. I'll start with that.
I like this. Very smart guy.
But hey, so your brother recently said that they are not Democrats; they are leftist socialists. It's an interesting dichotomy because they are probably more than likely Democrat voters. But when do you think the Democrat Party will start to pull away from groups like that are causing issues like this?
I don't know. When will the Republican Party pull away from MAGA? When it stops getting them seats and power, because that is all that matters, okay? And look, you can say that's cynical. No. I'm holding on to hope, okay? I'm holding on to hope. Why? Look, I do believe hope is not a strategy, okay? And you need a plan, not just hope, yes. But it's the ignition of optimism, okay? So I'm not about cynicism. I'm against it. I believe. But if it's winning for you, you do it. I know they were character counts. I know they were all about Jesus. I know they were about doing what's right and moral, not just best for you. That's over, okay? They are in a different vibe now that is all about advantage, and as bad as they may seem, the Democrats are worse. That's all they got. Reaction formation to that are the Dem Sox. We have grievance, affordability. Young people have things to fear that this system, that these generations are taking from them and ruining their future. And they have to fight back now with their own insurgents, with their own outsiders. So that's what my brother's up against. The sad thing for him is he's being painted as being, against a movement that he's always been fighting for. But that's his problem, not mine. I don't cover the race. What I'm saying is see the politics because it happens on both sides, because that's what works on both sides. Next.
Okay, good. I really want to get in Matty Stu because he's got a question about something that you've been talking to me a lot about lately. Matty Stu from California.
What's your question?
Hey, Chris, why so much hypocrisy on both sides with the silence on Boko Haram and the genocide they are carrying out in Nigeria towards Christians?
One, it's there, not here. It's not in their face every 5 minutes, right? Now you're going to have another problem. You want to be honest? Let's be honest. If all the Christians getting killed look like me, you get one kind of sympathy, okay, in America. Fair point? If they look what we're seeing in the Sudan, different level of sensitivity. Is that good? No, it's not good. Is it true? It is likely true as an ingredient to the ignoring of it. Where it is, who it is, okay, and why it is. Boko Haram doesn't scare us. Israel does as the extension of the white oppressor that is the American imperialist hand, right? That's what this is. Well, then why are you for Gaza but not for those Christians? They're brown there, they're brown there. Why aren't you down with brown in both places? Well, because I see these all the time. I see these all the time. And there's been a huge propaganda campaign for these in Gaza, not in Africa, not the Uyghurs in China, not what we saw in Syria. None of that gets the PR. So it doesn't get the concern. And that's what's so disgusting. I'm with you. Next.
Okay, Mr. Positive, I promised him to you tonight. Quickly. You both have 30 seconds combined. Go. Positive, Greg.
All right, I give it to you. What do you got, Mr. Positive?
Brother CC, thanks for taking my call real quick. My buddies at Infinity Sports would love to interview you and have a drink with you, Dave Shepard and Bart Winkler. But I got to ask you, my friend, what is the definition of domestic terrorist and how are they formed?
Domestic terrorist is somebody who, to advance a political agenda, which is in part generating fear, but it must be fear to motivate an agenda. It's the motive that makes it terrorism. That can be frustrated for people because it can look like terrorism, feel like terrorism, but you can't put it to it. Look what just happened with the guy who shot the healthcare CEO. So that's when something is domestic terrorism. Someone here doing things of violence here to scare and advance their perverse political agenda. All right, we'll be right back.
Scared me. I saw 0. Oy, oy, oy.
Social media says, owned by Dershowitz. I had him on to test my ideas. Wow, we got to pull out of this. Leland Vittert takes us to a better place right now.
No, that is a very, very high challenge, one which I will attempt to live up to, my friend.
You will achieve it, and I will watch it.
There we go. Chris, great show.